I was fired on a Monday morning. No thank you. No farewell party. Just a white envelope, a cold handshake, and a dry explanation from a guy who'd only been in his executive chair for 3 months. Nathan Cole, 38, a seasoned compliance specialist at Dawson & Kerr Logistics, a mid-sized freight company in Dallas, Texas, was the only person in the building who knew exactly where every safety document belonged, who needed it, and when it had to go out. He never boasted, never missed a deadline. For 12 years, he quietly kept the company upright through every audit, every regulatory update, every invisible crisis. Until Travis Morgan showed up. Travis was your typical optimize with Excel CFO. He looked at the payroll, saw Nathan Cole drawing the highest salary in the compliance department, and thought, I could hire 2 fresh grads for half that. And so Nathan was restructured. What Travis didn't know was this. There are things you can't quantify on a spreadsheet. Experience, trust, systems that aren't written down but live inside someone's mind. 9 weeks later, Travis was sitting in Nathan's new office, now the headquarters of Nathan's private compliance firm, with panic in his eyes. Their largest client, worth over $7 million, was threatening to walk because of a string of compliance failures Nathan used to catch in his sleep. And now, Travis had no choice but to beg the very man he called financial deadweight. But Nathan didn't answer right away. He looked at Travis and remembered that fall morning, the soft sunlight coming through his office window as he walked out of the building with no one bothering to say goodbye. No hugs, no thank yous, just silence and a few glances from people who used to lean on him every day. And now, the same guy who once said, "We need to streamline operations," was sitting across from him, trembling, desperate to salvage something he never truly understood. "I didn't come here to fix someone else's mistake," Nathan said calmly, his eyes drifting toward the window. "I came to build something that actually matters." And this is the story of how a man labeled expendable became the name that redefined an entire industry. You're watching the man they let go and paid the price. Sit tight, because what you're about to hear isn't just a comeback story. It's a survival manual for anyone who's ever been underestimated by a spreadsheet. The HR director called it a transition. A smooth one, she promised, like a well-oiled machine passing the baton. There would be paperwork, of course, an exit interview, severance details, a bland corporate checklist pretending to cushion the blow. But when Nathan stepped into the conference room that afternoon, the atmosphere was colder than the central AC. Travis Morgan was already seated, flanked by a woman from legal who barely made eye contact. Travis tried for a friendly smile, but his lips twitched like they hadn't done this enough times to be comfortable yet. "Nathan," he began, "first of all, let me say how much we value everything you've done for Dawson & Kerr." That opening line, that standard, scripted corporate line, was the only warning Nathan got before the guillotine dropped. "We've reviewed the structure of the compliance department," Travis continued, as if he were narrating a PowerPoint slide. "With new technologies and workflow optimization, we've identified areas where we can consolidate roles. As such, your position is being phased out." Nathan didn't flinch. He didn't blink. Inside, he felt something settle, not collapse, not rage, but something like quiet precision. Like a mechanic who hears the engine cough once and already knows which bolt is loose. He leaned back slightly in his chair. "I see," he said. The HR rep slid an envelope across the table. "We're offering a standard severance, 12 weeks pay, continuation of benefits through the end of the quarter. If you need a reference letter, of course, we'd be happy to." "I'll take one," Nathan cut in, his voice calm. Travis's smile thinned. He wasn't used to people staying composed. Maybe he expected a plea. Maybe he braced for anger. But what he got was something far more unnerving, quiet professionalism. Nathan stood, picked up the envelope, and buttoned his blazer. "Thank you for the opportunity," he said, extending his hand. Travis hesitated for a beat, then reached out. His palm was clammy. Nathan's wasn't. He walked out of that room with no fanfare. No coworkers lined the hallway. No Rachel. She had texted earlier, saying legal had warned HR not to let anyone interfere with the process. Whatever that meant, just the quiet buzz of fluorescent lights and the faint hum of servers in the IT room down the hall. As he passed the glass walls of his former office, Nathan caught his reflection, neatly dressed, briefcase in hand, posture firm. He looked like a man heading to a meeting, not a man who'd just been erased. He kept walking. The following day, while Nathan was finishing his morning coffee in his kitchen, his first unstructured weekday in 12 years, his phone lit up. A text from Rachel. All hands meeting. Travis is calling it a new chapter, replacing you with a guy named Chase. 23, no experience. Has a TikTok. Nathan chuckled. He stirred cream in his mug and stepped outside to check the garden. The tomato vines were coming in strong. Inside the company, things were already misaligned. Chase Turner arrived 30 minutes early, wearing a navy blue blazer 2 sizes too big and holding a notebook like it was a shield. He asked questions, too many questions, questions no one could answer, questions Nathan would have never needed to ask. By lunchtime, Chase had accidentally moved an entire compliance folder to a private drive. That folder contained 12 years of inspection records, recall alerts, and safety protocols tied directly to Redline Medical Freight, the company's most important client. No one realized the loss for 2 days. It was Sarah, a mid-level analyst who used to report to Nathan, who noticed something was off. She tried looking for a 2022 recall document on blood temperature monitors. The folder was gone. The backup system? Still on a weekly schedule. No backup until Friday. Chase panicked. He called IT. IT called legal. Legal called Travis. And somewhere in the middle of that mess, Sarah texted Nathan. He nuked the Redline folder. It's gone. Travis is melting down. Nathan, in his backyard, gently plucked a ripe tomato from the vine and smiled. That's unfortunate, he replied. But this wasn't just about missing files. Redline was meticulous. Their logistics involved vaccine shipments, cancer medication, high-value pharmaceuticals that could not afford even a 2-degree fluctuation. Their compliance expectations weren't just strict, they were survival-level serious. 3 days after the data loss, an auditor from the FDA showed up at one of Redline's warehouse hubs in Chicago. Routine check. A minor issue. One missing set of documents for a refrigerated transport unit. In the old days, Nathan would have had that resolved before the auditor reached the exit. Instead, Redline's compliance officer, who had worked with Nathan for nearly a decade, couldn't find the updated protocols. She tried calling Dawson. Then she tried calling Nathan. But his old number was disconnected. That day, Nathan received a call from an unknown number with a 312 Chicago area code. He let it ring once before picking up. Mr. Cole? The voice on the other end said. It's Dana Renshaw from Redline. I'm sorry to call you personally. We have a problem. Nathan leaned against his kitchen counter. Good morning, Dana. Yes, I'm no longer with Dawson and Kerr. I heard. Listen, we're in a bind. There's a compliance issue, and no one over there seems to know where anything is. Is there any chance you might have kept records? Nathan had. Of course he had. But this wasn't charity. I may have a basic version, he said carefully. But I'm not in a position to get involved directly. Dana sighed. Nathan, please. We need your help. Just for now. I'll send over the general template, he said. But going forward, you'll need to speak with Chase. He emailed it 10 minutes later. It would cover them for now. But the clock was ticking. And Nathan knew exactly when the real storm would begin. The template Nathan sent was clean, generic, and legally sound, but it was not the system. It was a fire blanket for a house that was already smoldering. Within 48 hours of receiving it, Redline's legal team forwarded a formal request to Dawson and Kerr. Please provide all updated documentation for temperature-sensitive shipments for Q2 and Q3. Travis didn't understand the urgency. He skimmed the email and forwarded it to Chase, who forwarded it to IT, who copied Sarah for help. Sarah didn't have answers. She had questions, dozens of them, and no one to ask. She finally texted Nathan again. Redline is escalating. Travis wants to know where you kept the risk mitigation files. Nathan didn't respond. On Thursday morning, Rachel Kim, still tucked quietly inside HR, was called into a senior strategy meeting. She wasn't normally invited to these. Travis paced the length of the room like a man playing CEO in front of a mirror. We're rebuilding the compliance structure, he declared. We've had a few setbacks, but this is a chance to rethink everything. A board member cleared her throat. Travis, what's the status with Redline? Travis straightened his tie. We've had some minor issues with document access, but the team is handling it. Across the table, Rachel watched him lie with polished ease. She knew that phrase, the team is handling it, was corporate code for we're panicking quietly behind the curtain. That afternoon, Redline's director of compliance, Dana Renshaw, made a phone call. Not to Travis, not to legal, to Redline CEO, Walter Green. I have serious doubts about Dawson and Kerr's ability to manage our regulatory obligations, she said. Nathan Cole had built a living system. What we're dealing with now is duct tape. Walter didn't wait. By 5 p.m. that day, Dawson and Kerr received a notice of pre-termination inquiry, a formal warning that unless all compliance discrepancies were resolved within 7 days, Redline would terminate their $7.2 million annual contract. The clock had officially started. Travis Morgan froze. He called Chase, who was already on the verge of tears. Chase didn't have documentation. Chase didn't know there were temperature audit logs. Chase didn't even know there was a separate protocol for biologics versus vaccines. Travis turned to Rachel. You worked with Nathan. What did he use for process documentation? Rachel met his eyes. He didn't write it down. He was the process. Meanwhile, Nathan sat in a quiet cafe near downtown Dallas, sipping black coffee as the sun melted across the window pane. Across from him sat Mike Delgado, a warehouse supervisor who had recently quit Dawson after being blamed for a compliance failure he'd warned about 3 weeks earlier. I read your name on the termination memo, Mike said, sliding his phone across the table. They said you left for a better opportunity. But this was premeditated. Nathan scrolled through the internal memo. Subject, Cost Reduction Initiative, Target Roles. His name sat squarely at the top. He handed the phone back. They planned it. Mike nodded. They did. And they lied to everyone about why. Nathan looked out the window for a moment. You still have access to the internal systems? For now, don't leak anything, but document everything. The story's not done yet. Back at Dawson, Travis made one final, desperate move. He pulled up Nathan's old email logs, hoping to reconstruct the system from whatever clues he could find. The messages were short, efficient. Compliance updated. Redline satisfied. Issue resolved. Audit cleared. There were no attachments, no process files, no maps. It was like trying to reverse engineer a symphony by reading the applause. He checked Nathan's old desk. Empty drawers. No notes. No binders. No breadcrumbs. He emailed Chase. Did Nathan ever train you on escalation protocol? The reply came 5 minutes later. What's escalation protocol? Travis stared at the screen, eyes unfocused. It was unraveling. The next morning, Redline CEO personally called Dawson's board chair. They didn't talk about percentages. They talked about trust. The call lasted 4 minutes. At 11:12 a.m., the board called an emergency session. By noon, the CFO who had promised to cut costs, not corners, was being asked to explain why millions in revenue were at risk over a $70,000 salary cut. Travis looked pale. His mouth moved, but the board didn't hear a thing. They'd already decided. Meanwhile, Nathan's phone buzzed. A text from Dana Renshaw. We're preparing a full internal audit. I'd like to bring you on officially. Can we talk terms? Nathan smiled. He tapped out a reply. Let's schedule something tomorrow. I think it's time we built something better than duct tape. Nathan didn't walk back into Dawson and Kerr through the front door. He came in through the side that mattered. The following morning, he met Dana Renshaw, Redline's compliance director, in a private meeting room at a WeWork office near downtown Chicago. It was neutral ground, quiet, no logos, no assumptions. Dana looked worn, not just tired but strained. Her shoulders carried the weight of every shipment, every regulation, every risk Redline had tried to offload onto a company that no longer had its foundation. Thank you for coming, she said, setting down her coffee. We're on the edge. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I assumed as much, Nathan replied. You wouldn't have reached out otherwise. Dana pulled out a folder, thick, unorganized, slightly wrinkled. This is what they've given us so far. Chopped up files, missing logs, misnamed documents. I don't even know what's real anymore. Nathan didn't flinch. He'd seen chaos before. But this wasn't just disarray. This was rot. Slow, silent, spreading behind the walls. The kind that doesn't show until the roof caves in. What do you need? Dana asked. Nathan folded his hands. 3 months. Full access to your operations. Weekly progress reports directly to you, not your liaison with Dawson. I work with your team, not theirs. No contact from Travis or his people. You pay me directly. $22,000 a month. All NDAs apply. Dana blinked. You're not cheap. I'm not a patch. I'm prevention. She exhaled slowly. Done. Nathan opened his laptop and began working that afternoon. By day 2, he had already identified 17 critical compliance gaps in Dawson's documentation. By day 4, he'd rebuilt the foundational framework Redline had relied on before it was deleted. And by the end of the first week, he requested something bolder. Dana, he said, we need to audit Dawson. Dana raised an eyebrow. You mean us audit them? It's your right. You're the client. And if they want to keep this contract, they need to prove they're not just duct taping holes. The next day, Redline initiated an unscheduled internal compliance audit of Dawson and Kerr's handling procedures. The audit was brutal. Chase, still trying to keep up, had been retroactively editing logs. Not out of malice, but panic. He couldn't find old versions of forms, so he just made them up. Inconsistent dates, wrong file versions, missing signatures. Sarah, caught in the middle, did what she could, but she wasn't trained for system triage. She forwarded 3 flagged issues to Travis. He never responded. Mike Delgado, from the warehouse side, confirmed that shipments had been loaded with temperature fluctuations. A recall notice had been missed. $200,000 worth of diabetic medication had likely spoiled. The logs were incomplete, and the paperwork for disposal hadn't been filed. Worse still, the hazardous materials handling guide hadn't been updated in 6 months. If an incident occurred, the liability would have been catastrophic. Nathan compiled a report. 23 pages. Violations, omissions, gaps, warnings ignored. Each page was numbered, footnoted, and crystal clear. Dana read it twice. This is worse than I thought. Nathan closed his laptop. And this is just what we can see. There's more buried deeper. But we don't need to find it. This is already enough. That afternoon, Redline's legal team drafted a formal letter to Dawson and Kerr. Subject, final compliance warning, 7-day resolution window. It was sent at 3:42 p.m. on a Friday. Travis received it at 3:47. By 4:15, he was on the phone. Nathan was in his kitchen, stirring pasta sauce, when the call came in. Unknown number. Texas area code. He let it ring twice before picking up. Hello. Nathan, it's Travis. Listen, I know things didn't end well, but we're in a situation. Redline is threatening to terminate. I was hoping you could advise. Just for a few weeks. Nathan said nothing for 5 seconds. The sauce bubbled softly. I'm under NDA, he replied calmly. I can't discuss Dawson's operations with outside parties. What? NDA with who? I can't discuss that either. Nathan, please. We worked together for 12 years. I remember. I'm authorized to offer you a consulting retainer. Name your price. I'm not available. He hung up, then blocked the number. 20 minutes later, Rachel texted. Travis just called an emergency exec meeting. People are panicking. Nathan plated his pasta, topped it with Parmesan, and sat down at the table. Dinner was perfect. By Monday, the cracks had become canyons. 3 more violations were flagged by Redline's internal review team. The FDA had sent a pre-warning letter regarding shipment inconsistencies. And Chase. He'd locked himself in a storage room after misfiling a critical update on controlled substances. He didn't come out for an hour. Sarah tried to cover, but she was unraveling. Rachel sent Nathan a discreet message. This place is a war zone. Travis looks like he hasn't slept in days. Nathan replied, he's dreaming of numbers. I was building systems. On Wednesday morning, the storm finally broke. The boardroom at Dawson and Kerr was packed, more tense than anyone had seen in years. Travis Morgan stood at the front with a PowerPoint slide he'd cobbled together at 2 a.m., sleep-deprived and clinging to whatever scraps of authority he still had. He cleared his throat and began. "We're currently experiencing temporary compliance challenges," he said, gesturing toward a vague bar graph labeled Operational Confidence. Nothing on the slide made sense. No one in the room believed him. From the back, board member Janet Walsh folded her arms. "Travis," she interrupted, "we received a document over the weekend. I'd like to discuss it." She slid a folder across the table. Inside was a redacted version of Nathan Cole's compliance audit, the same audit that had triggered Redline's final ultimatum. This was sent to us by a contact at Redline. It outlines 23 specific violations, most of which occurred after Mr. Cole was removed from the company. Travis paled. "That document is confidential. It's taken out of context. Is it inaccurate?" Janet asked coldly. Travis hesitated. "It lacks nuance." Another board member, David Chun, leaned forward. "Let's simplify this. You removed the person who maintained compliance for 12 years. How much money did you save doing that?" Travis looked down. "Approximately $70,000 annually." "And how much revenue is now at risk with Redline?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "Over $7 million. The room fell silent. The kind of silence that seals careers. That same day, Nathan was in a strategy meeting with Morrison Freight, one of Redline's expansion partners and a growing logistics competitor in the Midwest. They had asked for his help creating a transition plan, a framework that would allow them to absorb new clients seamlessly if other companies like Dawson and Kerr failed to meet compliance expectations. "We don't want to attack anyone directly," their CEO, Leo Morrison, had said. "But if those accounts become available, we want to be ready." Nathan understood. He spent 2 days designing a comprehensive plan, one that outlined onboarding procedures, data migration, and risk management timelines. The title of the report was simple: Stability in Unstable Markets. When Leo reviewed it, he smiled. "If we win these accounts, Dawson's done." Nathan said nothing. He didn't need to. By Friday morning, Redline made it official. The legal department at Dawson and Kerr received a termination notice. Formal, final, and unforgiving. The language was precise. Redline Medical Freight requires partners who uphold compliance excellence and demonstrate institutional competence. Dawson and Kerr no longer meets these standards. The letter was copied to Dawson's executive board and several of their largest clients. It arrived in Travis Morgan's inbox at 9:02 a.m. At 9:17, he called an emergency meeting. By 10:45, the board had voted. Travis was asked to resign, effective immediately. They offered him a non-executive advisory title to soften the blow. It wasn't mercy. It was containment. Rachel watched him pack up his office. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't even make eye contact. The man who had once called Nathan Cole replaceable was now just another casualty of false economy. Meanwhile, Sarah received a call from one of their clients in Arizona. "We heard what happened with Redline," they said. "Can you send over your last 3 audit reports?" She couldn't. 2 of them didn't exist. The third was half complete and missing signatures. That night, the Arizona account went dark. By Monday, 2 more clients had pulled back and requested independent compliance audits. The writing was on the wall. As Dawson and Kerr scrambled to survive, Nathan was building. Morrison Freight officially signed him as Director of Compliance Strategy, with full autonomy to hire his own team and design systems from the ground up. His first call was to Mike Delgado, the warehouse manager who'd exposed the internal memo. Mike signed on immediately. His second call was to Rachel Kim. "You built half of HR with no credit," he told her. "Come do it for real." Rachel handed in her resignation that Friday. Then Nathan reached out to someone unexpected. Chase Turner, the intern who had unknowingly triggered the collapse. "Me?" Chase said, stunned. "After everything I screwed up?" "You didn't screw up," Nathan replied. "You were thrown into a burning house with no instructions and no extinguisher. That's not failure. That's abandonment." Chase agreed to join, on the condition he'd be trained properly this time. Within 6 weeks, Nathan had a full compliance team, small, sharp, and loyal. Their first external client was a family-run shipping company in Missouri. Small operation, $45,000 a year. But Nathan treated it like it was Redline, because now he wasn't just protecting systems. He was redefining how compliance was valued. Back at Dawson, Jennifer Huang, Nathan's former mentee, was appointed interim chief operating officer. Her first action, she tried calling Nathan. "I know we messed up," she said. "I know we messed up, but this company needs a rebuild, and you're the only person who ever truly knew how it all worked. Would you consider helping?" Nathan paused, then said gently, "I have clients now who see value before they feel pain. I want to keep working with people like that." Jennifer understood. She didn't argue. After they hung up, Nathan sent a text. "You're smart. You'll figure it out. Just don't repeat his mistakes." It didn't take long for word to spread. After Redline's very public termination of Dawson and Kerr, after the boardroom shakeups, the resignations, and the quietly scrubbed LinkedIn profiles, something unexpected happened. People started asking questions. Not just clients, not just compliance officers, but regulators, lobbyists, federal consultants. They all wanted to know, who was Nathan Cole? How did one man's absence unravel a $7 million contract in under 2 months? And how did his return fix it in just 3 weeks? 2 months after Travis's resignation, Nathan received an invitation, formal, stamped, and unusually polite. Department of Transportation, Office of Regulatory Modernization. Invitation to join task force on national compliance standards. It felt surreal. Nathan reread the letter 3 times before setting it down. The government wanted him, not as a case study, but as a strategist. He called Dana Renshaw first. "They're asking me to help rewrite compliance protocols at the federal level," he said, stunned. Dana didn't hesitate. "You should do it. No one understands the stakes like you do." The task force was made up of 20 experts, some from private logistics companies, some from government, others from tech firms trying to digitize risk management. During the first meeting, everyone introduced themselves with long titles and credentials. When it was Nathan's turn, he simply said, "Nathan Cole. I help companies avoid expensive mistakes." It landed like a thunderclap. The room fell quiet. From that point on, no one questioned why he was there. Over the next 6 months, Nathan worked long hours. He broke down outdated policies. He argued for plain language documentation. He introduced new escalation flowcharts, audit tracking metrics, and mandatory cross-departmental training, not just for compliance teams, but for executive leadership. But his biggest contribution came in the form of a single clause, buried in a 94-page proposal, highlighted in red. The Cole Clause. No company may terminate a certified compliance officer without a documented transition plan reviewed and approved by an external auditor. In plain English, if you're going to fire the person who keeps the ship afloat, you better prove you've got someone who knows how to steer. The clause was controversial at first. CEOs balked. Legal departments frowned. But after the Redline fallout became industry legend, and after 3 more companies faced similar crises within a year, the clause became policy. It passed unanimously. Nathan didn't brag. He didn't do interviews. But inside industry circles, the story was already gospel. Don't repeat Dawson. Don't underestimate the invisible infrastructure that keeps your business breathing. Back in Dallas, Nathan's own consultancy, Cole Compliance Systems, was thriving. 12 clients, 3 permanent staff, dozens of freelance specialists. All of them had one thing in common. They valued preventive wisdom more than cheap fixes. Nathan's philosophy was simple. If your company is afraid to lose you, you're doing it right. If they let you go without a plan, they're the ones at risk, not you. One morning, 6 months after his firing, he got an anonymous envelope in the mail. Inside was a handwritten note. "I wanted to thank you. Your situation helped save my job. When the board saw what happened after you left, they reversed the layoffs plan for our department. I can't sign my name. I still work here. But please know, your sacrifice protected more people than you'll ever meet." Nathan read the letter twice, then filed it away in a folder labeled, "Why This Matters." A few weeks later, he passed through the lobby of a downtown office building for a meeting. As he waited for the elevator, he saw a familiar face sitting in the reception area. Travis Morgan. Hair a little grayer, suit less crisp, eyes restless. He was holding a portfolio and checking his watch nervously. Interviewing for a mid-level operations role, most likely. Nothing like the glory days. Travis looked up and noticed Nathan. Their eyes locked for a second. Travis opened his mouth, maybe to speak, but Nathan was already stepping into the elevator. As the doors closed, Nathan saw him sink slowly into his seat and felt nothing. No anger, no pity, just peace. The quiet kind that comes when you no longer need anyone else's recognition to prove your worth. By the time autumn returned to Dallas, Nathan's life had found a new rhythm, quieter but not slower. His home office overlooked a modest garden where the tomatoes were coming in again, almost as if time had respectfully paused for him to finish his rebuilding. Most mornings started with black coffee and a brief team huddle on Zoom. Afternoons were for reports, client calls, and the occasional compliance fire that he now handled with the calm precision of someone who had already seen the worst. Evenings? Evenings were his. Books, dinner, sometimes just stillness. He had built something better, not just a business, but a reputation grounded in quiet consistency, not noise. One Wednesday afternoon, he received an email from a young woman named Elena Torres, a junior compliance officer at a logistics startup in Phoenix. The subject line read, "How do I prove my worth?" Her message was raw, uncertain. "They're pressuring me to cut corners. They say compliance is slowing down revenue. I've only been here a year, and I'm already considered too cautious. How do I make them see that what I do matters before something goes wrong?" Nathan leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. He remembered himself, 12 years younger, walking into a new company with a laptop, a notebook, and the stubborn belief that doing things the right way wasn't optional. It was essential. He also remembered being overlooked, ignored, and finally replaced, until the silence he left behind became louder than anything he ever said aloud. He opened a fresh draft. "Elena, you don't prove your value by shouting louder than fear or profit. You prove it by showing your work. The small problems prevented, the near misses avoided, the consistency no one else notices until it's gone. Document everything. Build relationships. Make your process so stable that when someone else touches it, they feel the difference instantly. And remember, they won't see you coming until you're gone. So make sure they understand what they'll lose before they lose it." He clicked send. Then he sat back and let the silence answer for him. There'd be no statue, no feature in Forbes, no viral LinkedIn post, just a name that quietly circulated in meetings when someone asked, "Who can actually fix this?" Just a file pass from company to company, titled Coal System Base Template. Just a generation of professionals who heard about the man who was let go to save a few thousand and ended up becoming the benchmark of how much expertise is really worth. And maybe, just maybe, some executive would pause before signing that next termination letter. Maybe they'd look beyond the salary column and ask themselves, if this person walks out the door, who else walks out with them? Because in a world obsessed with speed, scale, and spreadsheets, Nathan Cole had quietly rewritten the only formula that truly mattered. Value is not equal to cost. Value equals what happens if you're not there. And for those wise enough to listen, that formula was worth more than any balance sheet. It was the difference between surviving and building something that lasts. If you've ever been undervalued, overlooked, or told you were too much for the role you held, remember Nathan's story. You don't need to shout. You don't need to fight. You just need to know your worth and build something so strong they can't ignore your absence. Have you ever walked away from something that didn't see your value, only to rise higher than ever? Share your story in the comments. Let someone out there know they're not alone. If this story resonated with you, give it a like. Subscribe for more powerful real-life stories of quiet strength and unforgettable redemption. And send this to someone who's doubting their worth today. Because sometimes the loudest victories are won in silence.